Welcome, everybody. Demetri Panos here for another episode, a movie review show of KDM, which stands for Kit Demetri Movies. And alongside me is my good friend and awesome co-host. Couldn't do the show without her. I mean, the K is her name. I guess I could go with a Ken, maybe a Candy, who spells it with a K, but it happens to be Kit. So I can't do the show without Kit. Hi, Kit. It's been a little while. Aloha. You just got back from Hawaii.
I did. I came back from Hawaii. Yeah. We both got a little cold, but now we're on the mend and ready to talk about some movies.
Yes, and today we have I don't even know how to call this because I got to talk about this later on, but today we are talking about The Hunger Games. What is the full title? The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. So that is today's movie that we will be talking about and reviewing. We've both seen it, obviously, or else we wouldn't be talking about it. And it has a half decent cast. Rachel Ziegler is in it from, I believe she was in West Side Story. And such. Fanula Flanagan is also in it.
Very briefly though,
but very briefly. Yep. Viola Davis is in it, and this gentleman who I hadn't heard of before, but he was very good. This Tom Blythe. Is that how you pronounce his Blythe? Yeah. He plays Cornelius Slow. So, as we start off every show, as I like to begin and try to be as much of a gentleman as possible, I always defer to ladies first. Kit, what did you think of The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes?
Well, here's a little background on it as well. It's a prequel. So it takes place several years before the Hunger Games that
60, if I'm almost correct. 60 years prior to the Schmunger Game, yeah. the Katniss years.
Yes, which I find was fun. It's named after a plant of some kind, some sort of root vegetable or something.
I think that was mentioned in the book, but what do I know?
Okay, well, they mentioned it in the movie. Anyway, so it's kind of an origin story for us. President Snow, played by Donald Sutherland in the regular movies, kind of an evil dude. So this is sort of his rise to evilness, I guess, maybe his way to go to the dark side. He doesn't start out as dark as he becomes, but yeah, so he and his family have sort of been what would you say, crushed or lost their luster and a lot of their money when the dad dies, and there's a war. Obviously, of course, we know about the uprising of the peoples, and and how Panem has to
it was basically the sectors,
right,
were pretty much put in place, and these are the earlier versions of the Hunger Games to try to wipe out war.
Right, to say, hey, if you go to war with us, then we're gonna take your kids and make them fight to the death.
Well, yeah, well, this is supposed to be because the war took heavy toll on everybody, and this is like, okay, look, instead of having a war, we're gonna do the Hunger Games. We're gonna do this by lottery, and it's it's battle royale, basically. And this, and then all of the sectors, is that what they were called? I forget.
District.
All the district. Oh, forgive me. The districts. And each district has their own, one district is does the farming, the other does almost like the baking, all this stuff. The butcher, the baker, the mining, and things like that.
Yeah. So all the fun from the original, from the first series.
Right.
Yeah. So, Snow has grown up and has tried to bring more notoriety back to his family, and he's been going to the university, whatever big university they have there, and there's some sort of prize that they get, and they get all this extra money. But they end up sort of doing a twist on it. what am I thinking? Peter Dinklage plays the dean of the college, and he's doesn't really
Right.
like Snow very much. And
Yeah.
long story short, Hunger Games happen, and the two that are picked from District 12 are
Mm.
are
Also, true, it should be said that the twist is that it will be the first Hunger Games in which the volunteers, the people who get the people
right
who win the lottery, they get mentors.
mentored.
It's the first time they get mentored. And then going forward, it was winners of the Hunger Games who ended up mentoring people. But this is the first Hunger Games in which the participants or the battlee, the people who do battle, have mentors.
Right.
And the best mentor, and it switches everything up because Cornelius was pretty much primed to win this big cash prize. But as you said, Peter
Right.
Dinklage's character, who hates him, switched things up to try to make it so that he does not win. He didn't want him to win, period.
Right. Right.
So,
So he ends up mentoring Rachel Ziegler's part, and she is sort of an outlier from District 12, I would say. She's kind of more of a like a troupe of performers. They call them Covey or something. It's kind of reminded me, a little gypsy, little this and kind of thing. So
very gypsy-ish. Yeah.
she sings very well, and she
Lucy Gray.
singing when she gets reaped and like totally, mesmerize people. Anyway, okay, we're getting way into the into the needless to say, they kind of fall for each other a little bit. Anyway, the games themselves, obviously very rudimentary. They don't have all the techo that they had in the Jennifer Lawrence movies, which I thought was a detriment to the film, because honestly, that was kind of one of my favorite parts, was the actual games themselves, right? I mean, what kind of stuff are they going to throw at them? What are they going to, what are they going to make them end up having to do? Being either in the forest or in the tropics and all that kind of stuff. That was fast. I love that part about the Hunger Games, honestly. And this one, they're like in some sort of arena that got kind of bombed out by these rebels. So the rebels are still causing trouble. And same situation. They have weapons sort of placed around. Although there was a little bit of surprise towards the end there of the games with the snakes. So there was sort of an added thing. And Snow is proving himself to be pretty savvy at this deal. And Viola Davis, who's the game maker, and she was really creepy, I thought. I thought she did a great job. She was just creepy to me.
Yeah, she was creepy.
He's the one who suggests, let's let everyone get to know these people. Like, let's see what they're like. So then someone roots for them and they can have sponsors and all the stuff that we end up seeing, right? He's the one that sort of spearheads all of that.
Right.
So, I was okay with it. It was okay. I just didn't feel that Rachel Ziegler sort of had that charisma that Jennifer Lawrence did, not in any way, in my opinion. She was okay, but I don't know. I kind of missed that. And like I said, I thought the games themselves was they were okay, but also I felt like they were kind of trying to grab at our hearts a little bit. There's one of the Hunger Games participants. She was a Down syndrome actress, and I'm just like, okay, I was just all this kind of stuff sort of thrown in there, and of course you had the tough chicks, and you got the buff guys, and I ultimately I just wasn't impressed with it. I just wasn't in it, and then they tack on this whole half an hour, 40 minutes after the games. I'm like, this is totally unnecessary, in my opinion. They could have easily had the love story, whatever it was, between Snow and whatever her character's name was, I forgot. They hold on, get it here. What's her name? Lucy Gray.
Lucy Gray.
I
Yeah,
forget.
Lucy Gray Baird.
I mean, they could have easily told that part. I know this is based on a book, so I get it, but I just felt like it felt tacked on to me. And the progression of Snow's going to the dark side is a little abrupt in a way. And it just kind of ended up boring me. I was like looking for my watch going, when is this going to be over with? So yeah, I wasn't necessarily impressed by any of it. It wasn't horrible. You know, like I said, there were parts that I was involved, like the game part and everything, even though it was sort of rudimentary, I still, you know, you're still watching it. But I think for me, the character I liked least was Lucy Gray, and unfortunately, she's supposed to be like the next, you know. Well, we don't
Well,
know what ends up happening to her. Obviously, there's sort of a mystery at the end of what ends up happening to her. But yeah,
mhm.
I think I miss Jennifer Lawrence, and so then I promptly came home and watched the original Hunger Games. Like, okay, that's a good movie to me. That's a good movie, and I read the books. The books are pretty good too. I did not read this book though. I did not read this book. Now, to be fair, I have talked to my daughter about it because you know, she's not a huge Hunger Games person, but she's, you know, she's in the know about what everybody's saying and whatnot. And critics apparently are out of touch because, you know, it's not, a lot of critics are kind of, you know, slamming on this, and but the audiences are really liking it.
If
So
you say so, we'll talk about that. But yeah,
fans, yeah, they seem to be really enjoying it. So anyway,
mm,
for me, I was
I,
just,
I
"Heh,
kind
I'm kind of bored,"
of. Well,
unfortunately.
I did have the
Visually, it
same
wasn't all
issue.
that spectacular either.
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
Visually, it wasn't that spectacular either. I mean,
No, I mean, and I get why. I mean, to your point, like the Hunger Games themselves was basically a locked door. You know, it's a bottle episode in a sense. It took place in that one setting.
yeah.
Look, I personally, I read the books of the Hunger. I read the Hunger book. I read the Hunger Game trilogy.
But did you read this book?
And oh no,
Oh,
no, because the last book pissed me off
oh,
like so bad. Had I not been reading it on an electronic device, like I have a Nook, and I actually had the book, I would have thrown the book out a window. Like I would have thrown it. Pit the that whatever the last story, it's not catching fire.
Mockingjay.
Mockingjay, maybe.
Yeah,
That third book I thought was horrendous. I mean, from top to bottom. Her writing style changed. She needed to be like Stephen King. It was awful. And I
I,
felt the movies got progressively
oh,
not as good. I mean, I did like Catching Fire to
I
an
did too.
extent. The first Hunger Games movie is fine, but then Lionsgate and their infinite wisdom, because Warner Brothers started the trend of like splitting the last story. It's money grab. It was a money grab, money grab, money grab. And even the director of the film like says he regrets splitting Mockingjay in two, and you could tell that it was just like it was unnecessary to do. You spread this out, Lionsgate. It was a money grab, money
Yeah.
grab, money grab. Um, but that third story, that third book was awful, and I felt that the movies just got
Oh, yeah.
declined. Even though, like I said, the first two fine, Mockingjay's parts one and parts two, I could have cared less. And then finding out that they're doing a movie about Cornelia Snow or
Yeah.
Snow, like who's like he's such a horrible character. He's all awful. And I'm like, who cares? Like, and I'm watching this movie, and to me, I was like, this is a screen full of who cares. You couldn't have picked a worse character like to make a movie about.
Right.
And to your point about Lucy Gray, like it wasn't really her story.
Right.
And I thought Ziegler did fine. And again, Tom Blythe, I thought did really well
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
But I didn't care.
Yeah.
I don't care about Snow. And it just made me wonder why why wouldn't you have done a movie about Haymitch, the Woody Harrelson character?
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
did he survive the Hunger Games? How did he become like,
Yes.
what happened to him? Like, he's a far more interesting character to follow
Yeah.
than Snow. And then I guess my other biggest problem, like, it's definitely a 3-act movie.
Yes.
The first act with the tributes, blah, 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 then the Hunger Games, and then this third act in District 12. Look, to me, this movie there was a whole lot of singing and snowing going on in this movie, and I could have cared less. Like, if there was one more song, like, number one, Rachel Ziegler or Lucy Gray comes out, and all of us, like, I'm watching the movie, and all of a sudden she just breaks into song like a musical. And I'm like, what the hell's going on here? And she's like breaking into song, and everybody's, yeah, kumbaya, whatever. And I'm like, what is happening here? And I'm like, so it's American Idol. Like, what is she trying out for? She's auditioning. I go,
why was
Ziegler,
that rebellious? Like,
right,
she's weeping and she starts singing this song, and everyone's like, oh.
Yeah. And I'm like, I go, Rachel, you got the part. Like, what is happening here? And then there's a scene, like, shortly right after that, where they put them in the cage in a zoo. What was it, right?
Was like, really?
And then Snow comes up with the white rose, and I'm like, so we go from American Idol to The Bachelor. I'm like, what's happening here? Yeah. And look, Rachel Ziegler, I hope I'm pronouncing her last name right. I think she's a talented actress. She's fine in this movie. She has a great voice. And look, I was a fan of West Side Story.
Yeah.
And in part because of her Maria. Like, she was really good.
Yeah.
It's obvious why you take this role, because you're hoping for the dollars. You want to be part of a franchise, and you want the bucks. Like, her ATM balance, like, her ATM account is going to balance out quite nicely.
Yeah,
I get it, but Jesus, does anybody read scripts in this town anymore? And that third act, like, it could have done without at least 1 to 2 songs in that 100%. Bar. I mean, what is going on here? Like, are we going to break out into square dancing or like the line? What? It's like, what, like another, and I was looking at my watch going, Jesus Christ, we got another hour to go. Because it's a 2.5 hour plus movie, right? To your point about Snow.
No, it wasn't 2.5 hours, only about an hour and a half.
No, it wasn't.
No, 2 hours.
No, it
2 hours
wasn't.
and change.
It was not an hour and a half movie. I'm telling you.
2 hours and change.
Yeah. I think it's 2.5.
Oh, so you're right. 2.5. I beg your pardon.
Yeah. And, but I'll tell you my biggest, and here's a bit of a spoiler. I'll tell you my biggest, one of my, another big problem I had is Lucy Gray makes a change. Like, her character does a 180. Like, really, like, and I don't understand what really precipitated it. I don't get what happened, because it's clear to me that Snow fancies her.
Yeah.
Right. It's clear to me that he fancies her. And I at least believed in the movie that their whole thing was they were going to escape and he was going to protect her. And they were going to be, I get it. And he did some questionable things. There's no argument there. But she kind of like turns on like, they're in the woods and they're escaping, and they come across this house, and she goes, oh, by the ways, like, in that floorboard are the guns. They're basically evidence of he killed somebody with a gun, and they happen to be under the floorboards. And then out of the blue, she says, and he's like, and Snow's like, well, this is great, because we could just get rid of this. And we're not. She goes, well, then you'll still have one more thing of evidence, meaning herself, like, as a witness. And he's like, why would you even say that? Like, what? And I was like, yeah, why would you say it? Like, what do you do? Like, what's going on here?
Well,
and then
the only thing I can think of, and I guess we shouldn't spoil it too much, but
no, we can spoil it. The movie's been out for a couple of weeks now, so
The only thing I can think of is that, you said you killed 3 people. Who's the third person? And he kind of hedges a little bit. And he says, well, me, I killed who I was before, and now I'm this person. And basically what she wanted him to admit was that he's the one who turned in his best friend, who ends up
Mhm.
getting hung. And I think that
Right.
that's what bothered her, or that's what turned her away. Maybe.
It's never quite
No.
clear, and then it's never quite clear what happens to her. It's like she becomes the Michael Myers of the Hunger Games, like because she clearly took a shot or two,
Yeah.
and she's
And
like,
he didn't see any blood though, or anything.
yeah, and I'm just like, by the time the movie was over, again, I was like, who cares at this point? Like, you're not doing anything. I don't care that this introduces the mentors. I don't care about Viola Davis's characters and these snakes, and then you see the little mockingjays are being made. Like, I don't care. Like, the Hunger Games series to me is not a pop culture event series that really stands the test of time.
Right.
Not that they grow old, but they don't carry on as well as other pop culture, like obviously Lord of the Rings,
Right.
Star Wars, for that matter. They don't like they came out during that Twilight period too, where we had the Twilight movies and then the Hunger Game movies, and both of them were making monies hand over fist for Lionsgate, because Lionsgate bought Relativity, who had Twilight. So, and then I also remember for Hunger Games, it was like Camp PETA or Camp the other kid. It was Josh Hutcherson and
Well, I mean, the first
right.
Hunger Games had a lot going for it. First of all,
Sure,
Jennifer Lawrence she really was. She just embodied that
sure,
character and really, really
right,
to new lengths. And her relationship with Josh Hutcherson, PETA, they were super close friends during the making of it. You can tell that there
and,
was
and,
a close
but who is the other
Liam Hemsworth.
Liam Hemsworth, thank you very much. Yeah, and I forget his character's name, but there was that whole
Just
tiger,
quickly.
like,
But you know what? You knew pretty quickly that she was going to go for PETA. I mean, Josh,
yeah,
that's Josh.
because I read the book.
Yeah. But no, but I'm just saying, even in watching it, if you've never read the book, it's pretty obvious who he was. Just so soulful and sweet, and just loved her to death. And I don't know, there was just something about that love story and that whole part to it that just made those movies even better. But mostly it
It
was
was
just
a tiger beat. Yeah,
mostly it was
oh,
Jennifer Lawrence.
this is true. But another thing in the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, our main characters are older.
Yeah.
They're not the tiger beat characters that, I mean, the Hunger Games, again, I compare it to Twilight because it had these young actors and they were really pushing is Katniss going to go with PETA or
Yeah.
Liam Hemsworth's character? And they were trying to get that young girl audience, which they did.
Yeah.
They did very successfully.
Yes.
Each of those movies, the Jennifer Lawrence ones, each of those movies opened up to north of $100 million.
Yes.
Plus each of them. So they did capture an audience, but I think that audience grew up, and then it's been, I think, 10 years
Yeah.
since there has been a Hunger Games movies. And unfortunately, in the pop culture and the zeitgeist, I the girls grew up and moved on,
Yeah.
and they moved on to Barbie or whatever. They
Yeah.
just grew up and the young after them, the other people, like, there was already something else to replace Hunger Games. And let's face it, that book of Songbirds and Snakes didn't do that great.
Yeah.
Like, it sold, but not
Right.
it didn't become. I recall Hunger Games being from a literal sense. So you had Harry Potter, which is up here. You had the Twilight series and Hunger Games, which were
Horrible though.
almost
Twilight was horrible. I mean,
but
unreal.
but granted, I get it. But at the same time, Hunger Games and Twilight, as far as a book series goes, they're kind of on par.
Yeah.
Like they each were worldwide bestsellers.
Yes.
I know Hunger Games was taught like from a scholastic level as well. I mean, it captured a zeitgeist.
It did.
And it was pop culture.
Do you
and
remember
I know
when they were making the movie and they first announced Jennifer Lawrence, and then they showed those first photos of her as Katniss, and everyone was just losing their minds.
They lost it. And then Lionsgate was at Comic-Con. In fact, I think it was Hunger Games. It was either Hunger Games or Twilight. Oh, you know what? I forget which one, so I'm not going to say because I think I might get it wrong. But Hunger Games was huge at Comic-Con. That Hall H, people were camping out to be able to get into it. And that spark is not there for this.
No.
The characters are older. You're right about Jennifer Lawrence. And Rachel Ziegler, like she's not Jennifer Lawrence, but I argue this movie really isn't about Lucy May as much as it is Cornelia Snow.
Yeah. Well,
and again, I've got no problem with the performances. I just have a problem with the focus of this movie, and it was way too long. Yes. It did not. I was looking at my watch too, and when it faded to black, goodbye. I go, oh shit, I'm gonna have to pay for parking now too, on top of it. So add insult to injury, I'm gone over my parking validation limit. And I was like, oh good God. And yeah, that story could have been 2 hours.
But you were saying we're gonna talk about it, but like I said, it's funny because I said that to my daughter Livy, and she's like, well, Mom, you're not on the pulse here, because they're out there saying how great it is and that the critics don't know what they're talking about and blah 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 blah. And I go, well,
this is what you can tell her. It is the lowest grossing Hunger Games movie to date, and by low I mean $100+ million.
Yeah.
For each of the original ones, this one barely pushed 42.
Yeah.
That's 60. That's over a $60 million disparity in grosses. And I had been saying, like, who cares? Nobody cares about Snow. And you can't make a character. Snow is so villainous and heinous, right? This isn't like going back, like the Star Wars he's not a Darth Vader. No, he's not. And you can't, as good as Blythe is, and yeah, he kind of gets screwed around with. You could tell that this movie was a paycheck movie from almost everybody.
Yeah.
From even Peter Dinklage.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like he's like, yeah, I'll do one. Just add another zero to the paycheck, please.
Well, they may have all thought
and
that they could capture lightning in a bottle again, but they can't. It's done. It's been done.
It's over. It's over, Johnny. And even Jason Schwartzman, like he just,
who is he supposed to be, like the father?
Yeah, I think I don't know if he's the father. Remember, he seemed pretty young, so was he not Flick? Was he not the Stanley Tucci character? Or maybe he was the father. I don't care. Like you picked the wrong character to me, and I don't care about the first Hunger Games and the mentorship, and I didn't care about the singing. Again, had you made it about Haymitch, who's a great character.
Yeah.
He's a great character. Make it about him, for crying out loud, and make it like, how did he really survive? Or maybe they just thought there was too much about him in the books and or the movies. But really though, like, because I really would have liked to have seen him like get through the Hunger Games at that period, because they were somewhat more evolved than the Hunger Games portrayed here. I could have cared less about all of these people. Oh, here was another problem I had. So Cornelius along with his best friend. They get kind of demoted, right?
Right.
And they get shipped to be peacekeepers, right, at to District 12. Like, he specifically requests District 12 because he knows that Lucy Gray is there. So they go to District 12. So apparently, peacekeepers are hated in every district. They have their uniforms. They don't like wear a mask where they're like covered, like everybody sees them. But apparently when they're in civilian clothes, hey, everything's all right. We go to a bar. Hey, how's it going? And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? Like, does everybody forget that he's a peacekeeper? Like, but no, he goes out in public and everybody seems to be okay with it. I was like, what? That third act, to your point, Kit, it's very problematic.
And tacked on. It's just
Yep.
not necessary. It was
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it just could have been tightened up so much. It could have been tightened up. Like a half hour of that movie could have gone out. We would have gotten the point. Cornelius would have gone back to Panem or
Right.
Pan or whatever. And like, we could have seen that. But again, this movie did not make me hunger for more.
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm over. Like, I was kind of like over it after the last one. I didn't need this movie to begin with. And it proved me like nobody cares. And what I'm tired about too, and I'm just going to say this, I'm tired about journalism, because I'm seeing, like, I've read reports in the trades, whether they be online or with, like, $42 million. And I'm like, that's a flop. I don't care if this movie cost 100 million. Like, you're trying to make this sound like this is a success. I go, this did $60 million plus less than the previous Hunger Games movies. And it did. Now they're saying, oh, the 5-day over the Thanksgiving Day holiday was 45 million. Well, I'm like, yeah, but it was only like it had over a 50% drop on the 3-day, and it took 5 days to get to 4. Like, this is by no means like, should Lionsgate be thumping their chest? And somebody really needs to take, like, I don't understand why people are like, why the press, the trades, online and or why they're championing and trying to make this movie bigger than it is. And then, like, they're even trying to go, well, a week ago we were saying that $40 million for Killers of the Flower Moon is a flopperoo, but you have to put it that it's Apple, blah blah blah. I mean, they're doing cartwheels to say that Lionsgate's this Hunger Game movies is not a flop. I don't understand why they give this movie that kind of attention. Yet, if another tentpole movie within a franchise had done this much of a flopperoonie, $60 million less, they would be crucifying it.
Yeah.
I don't understand what's going on with
Well,
this.
I think it's just because box office in general is way down. It's just, there's just nothing out there making any money. I mean, and so even if it makes a little bit of money, more than, whatever it is, then they're going to start championing it. But
do you know that it was forecast to bring in 55 to 60? And it even came way below that. So, I mean, there's a problem.
Yeah.
And I don't disagree with what you're saying regarding like box office, but I think that I think we had a pretty entertaining summer. I really do. We talked about it. I think we had a really good summer. I was looking forward to some of the movies going into fall. But then this one, this along with some others, but this movie was very disappointing.
Yeah.
And it does not deliver. And I just what did you say? Just stop.
Yeah.
Just call it a day.
Can't create it again, folks. It's done.
It's lightning in a bottle. And I don't care.
And I don't care.
I don't care. And you did it. Move on. And please, like, you didn't even finish out Divergent for Shailene Woodley. I mean, that's insulting.
I know.
Like they didn't even give her that third movie. They were
No.
gonna say, "Oh, well, we'll do it on streaming." And Shailene Woodley was like, "I didn't sign a contract for streaming. Goodbye." And I'm like, "Okay." And now they're trying. Now I read that there were reports. There was a report yesterday that came out talking about perhaps rebooting Twilight. And I'm like, no, stop.
As a series, though, it's a TV series, I think.
Wasn't it already a TV series? I
No,
don't care.
no, it
No,
wasn't.
oh, good God. Just Lionsgate. Let that dog
Those,
fly.
those movies, I
Just
mean, I will fully admit that that first one, I was absolutely team beating it, tiger beating it. I was in it, man. I thought they were all just, I loved it. Book,
yeah.
couldn't get through the book. I literally couldn't get through the book. So
Whereas the Hunger Game books,
I
at
thought
least the
the Hunger
first
Game
two,
books
were
were
very
good.
good.
Yeah.
Very
Well
good.
written.
And the adaptations were fine. Um, they were good enough. Like
So what
you
star
understood.
rating would you give this then?
Oh, I give this I give the movie the finger. Yeah, I mean it was 2.5 hours, and I just kept on, especially that third act. I did keep on looking at my watch, going, "Are you fucking kidding me right now? That like we're doing another line dance scene at this bar at this club? Like, what? Can we just please move on? Like, what is happening here?"
If it had
And
ended
it
after the
fell
game,
apart.
I would have given it a higher star rating, but that last part of it just brought it all the way down. So I mean, I'll give it a little bit. I'll give it 2 stars. But you know,
Yeah, it angered me. I mean, I did like, again, I got nothing against Rachel Ziegler. I thought
she
she's
bugged
fine. She has a great voice. She didn't bug me,
me.
but it's like
I actually like
oh,
the cousin,
go ahead.
Hunter Schafer, who's from Euphoria. She's a very fascinating
Oh,
actress. I
yeah.
liked her in this.
Tigress.
I mean, I was
Tigress,
hoping
yeah.
she were the one that he ends up, that she's the one that gets the love interest or whatever. I think she would
Yeah,
have
I mean,
whatevs.
it's like, oh, Rachel Ziegler can sing. Oh, let's give her like a dozen songs. And it's like,
Well, because there
okay,
is Songbird in the title, so
yeah, okay. And then I'm trying to figure out who Rachel Ziegler is. Like, is she end up being like Katniss's mom or something? Or like, who is she? Like,
I
I
think
don't
she goes
care.
off.
Like,
My theory is that she goes off into District 13. Remember, because there was a District 13 that kind of was on the outsides of the outside, so she may have ended up there with all the stragglers. I don't know.
oh, the gypsies. Yay. Yeah, well, let's just hope that this is the end. Like, we don't need any more. And I
Yeah,
hope this puts a stake in the heart of the
but
Hunger Games theme park.
Tom Blythe, he is actually one to watch for though, because this guy looks familiar to me. He's on a TV show about Billy the Kid that I heard is pretty.
Mm.
He plays Billy the Kid. Oh, The Gilded Age. That was the other thing. I've been watching that on HBO, which is kind of it's okay. It's not
Mhm.
great, but he's in that as well. So yeah, I feel like he's one.
I would have liked to see I would have liked to have seen Tom Blythe and Rachel Ziegler in another movie.
Yeah, maybe.
Like, I mean, I would have liked to have seen them in another movie, and I hope to see both of them in other movies.
Yeah.
I get why you take this again. You believe it's going to be a stepping stone in a career because of what happened before, but it's also, I'm sure there's some semblance of a payday. And I didn't have the problems that you did with Miss Ziegler, but Tom Blythe is very good.
Yeah.
He's really good. I had no problems with a lot of the teens or the people who are supposed to be mentors.
Mhm.
Even the gentleman who played his best friend, I thought was pretty good too. The direction was fine.
Okay.
It's fine.
I said nothing to write home about, really. Didn't take any creative liberties. So
No.
well,
So there
we're
you go.
also going to be probably doing another podcast here for you guys shortly as well, because we're going to talk about
Shall we tease it?
season.
Yeah, well, We'll tease it. We'll tease it. Where our next movie will be Nap- Napoleon. Napoleon. You will have a Napoleon complex once you're done with our reviews of Napoleon.
I like it. But we'll get into that at
We'll
another
get
time.
into that. Yeah, because yeah, I want you to you're gonna have to square a lot of things for me in that story. But anyway, so that'll be our next, and then we'll have some more.
I've now determined, Demetri, that you will listen to me and you will take some of the things I say to heart, but I generally can't change your mind about some. If you really don't
About
like something, then you don't like it.
yeah, I mean, well, that's the whole fun about talking about movies, especially with you,
Yeah.
especially with people who love talking about movies, because you'll rib me about it and I'll rib you about it.
Yeah.
And but we're not this is why I love you. I mean, we're not like screaming heads. And I hope that the people that watch us, in fact, my dad watches us. Seriously, and he's like, I really love the chemistry you two have. He goes, it's really nice. He goes, it's really fun, like how you two go back and forth. And I think and I hope that comes across for everybody else outside of my dad. And Dad, thanks for watching. Thanks. That's two people. No, I'm kidding.
I think next year we'll try to promote this in some more ways to try to get people to tune in, because
It always takes, you got
takes
to keep
time.
doing it.
Takes
You
time.
got to keep doing it. It takes time, and we'll have more special shows because those seem to do very well. We will do, I'm sure, by the end of the year or before we break for Christmas, perhaps our favorite movies of the year, our worst movies of the year, and what we think may or may not. We have the Hollywood Creative Alliance award shows coming up, and
Yep.
what we think may be nominated and what could win, what may not win, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah.
So stay tuned, everybody. Thanks again for tuning in.
Please. Kit, welcome back. And thank
Wow.
you. This has been like awesome.
Love you to death. We'll talk to you guys. All right.
Thank you so much. Somebody loves me. Bye.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye. How do I end this thing? Oh,
I
there.
don't know.